All right, so 2022's Devotion is directed by J.D. Dillard, written by Jake Crane and Jonathan Stewart, based on the book by Adam Makos, and it's about a pair of U.S. Navy fighter pilots who risk their lives during the Korean War and become some of the Navy's most celebrated wingmen. Stars Jonathan Majors as Jesse Brown and Glen Powell as Tom Hudner. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, you have a really great cast in here. You have a really great story, a really compelling story. You have some really great action scenes in there involving, naval aviation, as well as also some war scenes sprinkled in there, from the ground. Yeah, all around great performances, I would say. Jonathan Majors especially, I think, steals the show. One thing I will say, Glen Powell at times, I think, not it's not because of his acting, but it's because of the writing. I feel like his character kind of takes a back seat and doesn't really get much until the very end of the film. Speaking of the very end of the film, you will have it spoiled for you if you search anything about the real life story of this. So I highly recommend not doing that. Maybe even me saying that will spoil things for you and you can kind of assume, but I think it's the best going into this movie not really knowing anything about the history if possible. But yeah, I didn't personally, and I kind of looked up some of the stuff afterwards, which kind of ruined a little bit of the movie for me, I will say, but we'll get to that in a sec. As far as other cast members, we have Christina Jackson as Daisy Brown, the wife to Jesse Brown. We also have Tommy Sadowski, is that it? Yeah, Sadowski, as Dick Savelli, is that how you say it? We have Darren Kagasoff, I think that's how you say that, as Bill Koenig. We have Joe Jonas as Marty Good, which I will say this right now, Jonas Brothers, that was my first concert, don't make fun of me, but I watched all the Camp Rock movies and even that Jonas Brothers TV show on Disney Channel, so yeah, it's cool to see Joe Jonas in this movie and seeing him acting again. Pretty sure this is his first acting gig for quite a long time, pretty much since that Jonas Brothers TV show on Disney Channel, most likely. But Nick Jonas has been recently in the Jumanji film, so he's been getting the rounds when it comes to acting. But cool to see him getting back into it. Don't think Kevin Jonas will be getting back into acting, but we'll see. We also have Spencer Neville as Bo Lavery. We have Nick Hargrove as Carol Mooring. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Boone Platt as Buddy Gill. Dean Denton as Captain Sisson. But the one here I want to mention is Joseph Cross as Charlie Ward. Some of you may or may not know Joseph Cross, who was in Harry Potter. I believe his character was Seamus Finnegan. Yeah, so cool to see him in this movie, even though it's just for a kind of small appearance. But yeah, really great cast here, and I think pretty much all these people bring their A game. And it's really just the writing that takes some of these characters down for me, because I would say, except for Jonathan Majors, Glen Powell, and maybe Christina Jackson, everybody else just like has, I mean, they're there and they say things, that's for sure, and they contribute because they kind of have to be there. But for the most part, they're just kind of there to, fill out the rest of the roster, They don't really serve much of a purpose other than, for the fact that you have to have them there. And people are saying online in other reviews, it's like, it's hard to critique a movie that's based on a true story. But I looked up some of the stuff about the actual true story, and there's some things in this movie, some big things and some small things, that just either happened differently or just altogether didn't happen at all, which isn't surprising for movies like this. But in this particular movie, Sean Chandler on Sean Chandler Plus, he was reviewing this film and talking about how, since these things actually happened, you can't really critique them too easily because, it actually happened. That's true with some elements in this movie, especially at the very end. The thing that happens at the end actually happened in real life, but there's like fighting scenes, like dogfight scenes, that didn't actually happen to these characters, or to these people, I should say. There's people that didn't meet other people at certain times. There's inaccuracies in this movie, big and small, and the big ones, especially, like there's one mission where one person does one particular thing, and apparently in real life they didn't actually have a hand in taking care of that one particular thing. And if you watch the movie, maybe you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, it's things like that where I'm like, because this movie in particular, with Sean Chandler's review, he was saying, since it's based on a true story and they're staying accurate to the story, they can't really makes the movie not feel like a structured film because they're sticking to how the story was. But when you look into it, they're really not. So it just feels like it doesn't have much structure in general, I guess you could say. There's certain characters that just you don't really know a whole lot about these characters. Glen Powell in particular, like you learn a couple things about him, but he's supposed to be like the second hand man to Jonathan Majors. The film opens up with his character, and I feel like he gets the least to do out of the two. And maybe that's just because Jonathan Majors as an actor is overshadowing him, but I feel like Jonathan Majors is credited first. I feel like he's the main character of this film, but at the same time, Glen Powell as Tom Hudner is supposed to be a very important character in this history as well. And I, again, feel like that character just kind of took a back seat for me personally when it comes to the writing. But yeah, Daisy Brown, Christina Jackson, who plays her, I thought she was pretty good with the few scenes that she gets. She gets a decent amount of scenes, but she was pretty good. But like all the background people, all the other crew, like Joe Jonas, I think does a pretty good job. But again, like they really just don't get a whole lot to do. They're just kind of the stereotypical, like, Navy guys from this time period. That's just kind of how they are. They're like taping cigarettes around them when they go out on the town. I mean, like, I don't know. They're just the typical dudes in the movie, I feel like Joe Jonas's character and all the other actors who play the rest of the crew probably could have been swapped out for anybody else, and it probably would have felt the same. But yeah, let me see here what other notes I have. I don't know how many other notes I'll actually have or how long this review will be. It does take a lot of time to get going, but at the same time, the first like 30 to 45 minutes almost feel like they go by so quick that it's almost a montage. And in a way, it almost kind of is, because things are just you just get a montage of like, oh, let's see Tom Hudner going to this one place and showing up to this one place and open up with his character, and then we'll have him meet Jesse, and then we'll have Jesse go to his house, and then we'll have Tom take Jesse back to his house, or we'll have whatever it might be. It's just things happening, like. And no particular scene lasts more than like maybe 3 minutes tops. You know what I mean? Like it just keeps cutting, it just keeps going to the next thing, going. And then when it starts to like, but at the same time, it feels slow because like there's nothing really happening. A montage should be exciting. It should be about something about to happen, but like a montage shouldn't be introducing your characters. You feel me? That sounded weird. I shouldn't have said "you feel me." I don't say that very often, but yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of the issue I had with the Elvis movie. Is I feel like they just couldn't take the time to slow down with one particular thing. But that's really only in the first like 30 to 45 minutes that I have an issue with that. Then it kind of takes the time to slow down a little bit with particular things, and there are character moments in here that I very much enjoy. Again, mainly with Jonathan Majors. And some of those scenes are just Jonathan Majors on his own. It doesn't even have to be around one particular person. Jonathan Majors just brings a lot of charisma to this role. And a lot of just like, a lot of drama and just a lot of he brings a lot of chops, that's for sure. I'll say that much. But yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, the one thing I will take away from this movie is that Jonathan Majors is an amazing actor, and I'm also excited to see more from Glen Powell in the future. I think he was great in Top Gun. I think he did pretty good in this movie. It's just, again, the writing he was given, I don't think he was given enough to do. But yeah, let me see here. Just making sure I don't have any other notes. There are some emotional elements that got to me, but probably didn't get to me as much as the writers probably would have hoped. But yeah, I can appreciate the story. I can appreciate the elements of it that are true. But it's the stuff in between. Like, again, there's a lot of movies like this based on true stories where they make up a bunch of shit. And I like those movies. But in here, like, if you're gonna not have a whole lot of structure to your film, at least, at least try to stay close to the story. Like, stay as close to the source material as possible. I know you want to make it entertaining and whatnot, but like, I wasn't, I mean, I watched the whole movie, I guess. I didn't leave the theater, but like, was I entertained the whole time? Not necessarily. But yeah, The aviation scenes aren't as good as Top Gun Maverick, obviously. There are times where I'm like, are they actually in the cockpit? Like the actors, like, are they actually doing what they did in Top Gun? Because, Glen Powell would have experience with actually being in the cockpit because they did that on the sets. Um, but yeah, there's some scenes where it seems like they probably could have been in a plane. And then there's other scenes where you're just like, yeah, this is probably just CGI, but the CGI looks good for the most part. And then there's other times where it's just like, oh, these were probably stunt people driving or flying planes. But yeah, I mean, the aviation scenes don't feel as impactful as the Top Gun Maverick scenes. Not just because I watched those Top Gun Maverick scenes in IMAX. I've watched that movie since I got back home and watched it, on Vudu. And those scenes are still impactful. And in here, those scenes just don't feel as impactful as they do in there. And I hate to compare it because these are two very different movies, but when it comes to two movies that have similar themes that came out in the same year, you kind of gotta pick and choose which one did better, which one did worse. And I mean, obviously, I do think Top Gun Maverick is the better movie, but there are elements in this movie that I do like and would rewatch. Just wouldn't rewatch the whole movie for, to be completely honest. But there are some tense aviation scenes that really kind of got my heart beating, and I was like on the edge of my seat, like, oh my God, please just like, oh, land safely. But yeah. Uh, I think that's pretty much all I have. Uh, yeah, I think I shared the YouTube channel, U.S. Military History. I think I shared that with you guys. But they did a breakdown on the historical elements of this film. Some of them true, some of them false. What's made up, what's not. So go check out that video in case you've watched this movie in particular. And if you haven't watched the movie, I would recommend not watching that video and not looking into the history, like I said before, and checking out the film first and getting your opinion on it first before, anything else. Because I do think there are going to be people that like this movie. This one inevitably just was not for me. Overall, in terms of my ranking, I got the premium ticket, I got the standard ticket, discounted ticket, and free ticket. I'd give it a discounted ticket. Most people would probably give it a standard. I think they would think it's worth the price of admission. But me, I would probably, wait until my theater, the theater I go to at least, they do like discount Tuesdays where tickets are like, I don't know, $7, $6, something like that. So it's worth watching on a discount. It's a very long movie, and you definitely feel that run time after a while. I think I still had an hour left. I checked my phone and I was like, feels like this movie's almost over. And I checked and I still had over an hour left. And I was like, God damn, I didn't look at my phone again after that. And it felt like another hour and a half. I was just like, geez, this movie is a little overly long, but however long that book is, they got to condense that into 2 hours. So that's not an easy feat. So I appreciate the effort at least. But yeah, have you seen 2022's Devotion? What did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you in the middle? I'm kind of in the middle. There's elements that I like. There's elements I really don't like. But for the most part, I can appreciate the history. That is the one thing I will leave you with. I can appreciate the true history of what actually happened between these two people. But yeah, have you not seen it? Are you planning on watching it anytime soon? Why or why not? Comment down below. Really, anything you want to comment down below, I would love to hear from you. And I pretty much always respond to my comments. So yeah, anything you want, down below. But yeah, leave a like on the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and I will see you in the next one.